Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining me for yet another product review. Now, if you haven't seen the unboxing for this particular keyboard yet, I highly recommend you go watch that video first, and I'll put the link to that down in the video description. But for those of you wondering, this is the DEC Francium Pro 87. What makes it pro, so to speak? Well, it has a strong metal frame, it has PBT backlit double shot keycaps, and of course it has the backlighting that comes with different modes. Now, before I get in depth in this review, I'm going to get two subjective things out of the way right now with this keyboard that are very well known within the community, one more than others. And I say they're subjective because, well, quite frankly, they are. They're an opinionated thing, and I'm not going to allow them to have any bearing on my final review because I do believe they're subjective, and while one person may not like them, the next might. The first is the font of the keycaps. Now, the quality of these keycaps is fantastic. They're as thick as Vortex, the texture is that of close to Ducky, and they're also double shot and backlit, something that is exceedingly rare within the keycaps available on the market right now. So they scream all around quality, and even the spacebar is PBT, so it's quite fantastic. These keycaps are phenomenal as far as quality is concerned. However, again, the font choice is a bit odd, looking like something you would see in a keyboard in an episode of Stargate, perhaps, where you're using Egyptian technology. But, that said, I personally don't mind it too much. Would it be my first choice? No, not by a long shot. But it's definitely not as ugly as, say, some of the gamerish fonts on Razer or some of the cheap keyboards you can find on Amazon for sans $40, $50. So I am personally leaving that out of this review, except for this comment here. Just, it is a subjective thing. It is what you see. Some people absolutely hate it, other people don't mind it, and a few people like it. That is what it is. It does not impact the quality of the keyboard in any way, shape, or form, hence I will not mention it going forward in this review. The other subjective thing about this keyboard is the backlighting I have seen mentioned from some people, and that is, it is a bit dimmer than some other boards on the market. And that is done with intent. They run the LEDs at a lower voltage so that they last much longer than other keyboards. I believe rated up to 5 times longer than most LEDs. But it doesn't get wholly bright. Let me see if I can darken the room a bit so you can see what I mean. Now, I still have some lights on in the room, but I turned off just enough of the white LEDs so that you can see the backlighting on the camera. As you can see, they're not the brightest, and this is max brightness. But they're definitely not dim either. I can clearly see most of the keys very well, except for maybe some of them over here, like the backslash, and even the F keys are pretty bright. So really, I think that they're bright enough. And one of the things I really like about this keyboard is that when the LEDs are completely off, the font is still pretty visible. Like, for example, this cap lock key right here, the light is completely off, but it almost looks as though it's just white legend double shot onto a black keycap, so you can still clearly see it even with the backlighting off. So if you choose not to use the backlighting, or that you think it's too dim or just for show, you can still clearly see the legends without it. It's just an added feature to have, but they're still perfectly visible without the backlighting at all. However, moving on. Sorry about that, camera readjust to the light. The keyboard itself is exceptionally well built. It has a very strong metal frame. It is very sturdy. It's fairly heavy. It definitely has heft to it. It kind of feels like when I first picked up my Real Force 87U. The actual cable on the back is hardwired. It is not removable. Some people may like that, some people may not. It's definitely more reliable in the long run because you don't have to worry about that USB connector breaking if you keep unplugging it and plugging it back in on boards that have a removable connector in the back. Now, Another slight downside here is on the feet. As you can see, unfortunately, while sturdy, the feet do not have any rubber grips. Now the keyboard never slid around for me, so it was never a problem because the front feet down the bottom there kept it perfectly in place. However, your mileage may vary, and I kind of wish that they would have put some rubber on the feet. I really feel as though there's no excuse not to do that right now, considering most brands simply do. It does have a nice cable routing system where you can go off to the left, right, or right out the back center, depending on where you want to put the cable. The cable is very high quality. It is very bendable, very durable, rugged, braided cable, and I don't have any fear at all about moving this around or routing it that the cable is going to snap or break anytime soon, which is a very good thing considering the fact that the cable is not removable, so you are stuck with it, as it were. So you cannot replace this down the line. I forgot I left one of the feet open there. Now, as you can see, I've put some of my artisan caps on the board just to display them, some of the Hotkeys project keycaps I have, and one from Holy Oops up in the escape key here. But that escape key is going to come into play in a minute. One of the other cons of this keyboard is, at first glance, the layout looks quite typical, quite normal. But when you look at the keyboard closely, that's where things change a bit. You see your F1 through F10 right here, and you're wondering, well, wait a minute, where is F11 and where is F12? F11 has to be accessed with the function key. You have to hold down function key and then hit this to get F11. And F12 is even an odder placement, actually is on the escape key. So you have to hit the function key and the escape key to get F12. Now for your more typical user, this may not be a problem. If you're a developer or something akin to that, it may be an issue if these are keys you use quite frequently. So do bear that in mind. Your mileage may vary as to how much that will impact you. It does have a full set of media keys here that can be accessed on the function layer, including mute, volume down, volume up, play pause, fast forward, calculator. You can lock the Windows key. You change your lighting mode here. And you can also adjust the brightness here and the up and down arrows with the function key as well. Now, as far as the actual lighting modes, it comes with all the basic ones you would expect. It comes with like that snake moving pattern, and where the lights kind of do their little disco dance when you type one key and they move around. I prefer just the solid backlit option. I'm not into all those fancy modes you see on certain keyboards. It's really not for me and too flashy. I either want the backlights on or I want them off, and that's it, and it does that quite well. If you want more profiles, you can download them from Deck's website, and you can also create your own, but it is a single backlight option. The one I have has blue LEDs. There's also a variant available with white LEDs, and the particular model I have has cherry MX Browns, which is one of my favorite lighter mechanical switches. Now, just so you can get a closer look at these keycaps as we're describing the switches here, you can see how thick those are, and you can see the double shot right there. And again, you can quite clearly see the legend even when the light's not shining through it, which is much appreciated. The caps really are stellar, so I do feel it's a shame, and I promised I wouldn't mention it, but that they chose that particular font. But again, the keycaps are of such high quality that I feel as though I'm giving it a bit of a pass on that, and plus it is a subjective thing. One other minor complaint I do have about the board is all these secondary media functions here that you do see underneath the keycaps are just printed on there. They are not double shot like the rest of the legend on the keycap. Not as though I think they're going to wear off anytime soon, since they're on the front facing part of the keycap, not the top, but still I would have rather have seen them go that extra mile. Overall, I feel the keyboard is exceptionally solid, and it has your general backlighting if you just want the basic backlighting. It is very, very well built. Those of you concerned about reliability of a removable cable, well, this one has one that's hardwired in, so that, again, one less thing you have to worry about. Something I'm actually starting to appreciate as of late, as I've had 2 different boards with removable cables need the connector resoldered on, which is beyond my ability, so I had to pay someone to do it for me. I used to hate the idea of actual hardwired cables into keyboards, much on the real force. Philco boards are now on the deck, but I'm actually very much like Ripster on the mechanical keyboard Reddit forums, really warming up to them and almost starting to prefer them, except when it comes to compact boards, because the entire idea of them is you move them around anyways. But on 10 keyless or bigger, I really honestly can say I prefer the hardwired cable at this point personally, but again, that is subjective. Your mileage may vary depending on what you're going to use the keyboard for. Thus far, I've had absolutely no issues with the board at all. I have tested it extensively with switch header and have found absolutely no chattering whatsoever. The board has performed flawlessly in typing and gaming alike. It also has a very unique sound signature due to the metal frame and where it is so rigid. I'm going to do a brief typing sample for you so you can hear it, but do bear in mind that this is an antique desk, and as such there is a bit of a echo that you will get with the sound as well, and that is because of the wood desk and doing my best to try to dampen it with a desk pad, but it still only dampens it so much. I'm actually going to raise the feet as that seems to help a little bit as well, and I'm going to move the keyboard closer to the microphone so you can get a better sound sample. So do excuse me for one moment while I do that. Following is a brief typing sound sample of the DEC Francium Pro 87 10 keyless board with Cherry MX brown switches and the stock PBT double shot backlit keycaps. Hopefully that gave you a pretty good idea of the actual sound, excuse me, sound signature of the board itself. It's kind of hard to explain exactly if you don't get it from that mic. Some people appreciate sounds of keyboards more than others, but to me it almost kind of has that unique, almost Philco sound, but dampened a bit by the extreme heft and well-built keyboard that the DEC is. I really like the sound tremendously, and I find it very enjoyable. It has a good sound while not being too loud. It doesn't annoy my wife, which it doesn't take too much to annoy her with keyboard sounds, to be quite frank. Another huge plus of this keyboard. Now this keyboard uses Cherry MX stabilizers, which are the ones that do not use the wires and generally are considered mushy and not as crisp. However, I'm not sure what DEC did on this keyboard to these Cherry MX stabilizers. I'm not sure if they clipped them. I'm not sure if they just used a higher quality one. But these are the best feeling Cherry MX stabilizers I have ever used on any keyboard to date. They, at first, honestly, before I researched the board at all or took a keycap off of the board, I really thought that they were Co-Star. I was shocked when that they were Cherry. They don't feel mushy at all. They feel very crisp, and I was just flabbergasted when I found out that they were Cherry. So I'm not sure exactly what it is they do that gets that feeling, but it doesn't have the mushy feel that the Cull 87 does by contrast on its keys that use stabilized keys. Let me see if I can kind of get you a sound sample here, but like this is the right shift. And that feels as good as it sounds. There's no kind of mushy thud like you hear on a lot of Cherry MX keyboards. Even the space bar, left shift, they're all very crisp, and honestly I really can't tell the difference between these and one of my Co-Star stabilizer boards side by side, and that's the highest compliment I can pay a Cherry MX stabilizer, because then you get the benefits of very easy to change keycaps with the general feel, or very, very, very close to that feel of Co-Star stabilizers. So whatever it is they did on these Cherry MX stabilizers to get that feeling out of them, I wish more manufacturers would copy, because it's truly an amazing feel, and they did a great job with it. It's simply put the best feeling Cherry MX stabilizer I've ever used. And I know I've said that and repeated myself, but it really is, and I really want to stress that point. So summed up, would I recommend the DEC Francium Pro 87? Yes, I would highly recommend this keyboard, as long as you realize you're paying a premium for these keycaps as part of that deal. And if you don't like the font, then it's kind of a waste, or if you can't at least tolerate the font, it's kind of a waste, because the keycaps really are that nice. And, well, I mean, you can replace them, but then at that point, you're kind of tossing a big part of the premium of the board out the window. It's still a very nice board on its own right. It really is. It would rank up as one of my favorite 10 keyless boards I've used to date. But you're taking a big part out of that price equation. So if you don't want to use the stock keycaps or have no intention thereof, I can't recommend it as much, because that, again, that's a big part of that price premium you're paying for the DEC board. But if you are going to keep them on there, I can recommend it without a second thought. If you're going to replace them, then you really need to think, is it worth paying that much extra for the build quality, the superior feeling Cherry stabilizers compared to other Cherry stabilizers I've used, and the just great durability of the board overall. As there are other options out there for less money that are still well built, just not as well built, say from WASD, Cole, or other manufacturers out there, including Philco has quite a few boards right now. Not Philco, excuse me, Leopold has quite a few nice boards right now that are reasonably priced, that have stock PBT keycaps. But overall, I really like this board, and I think it's a shame they did choose that font, as I think it scared a lot of people off from trying it. And otherwise, it's a fantastic board. The only other minor complaint I have, again, is that kind of odd layout choice where you don't have F11 and 12 where they normally are, and F11 is a function row key here, and F12 is actually a function row on the escape, which is really awkward, doing, you know, kind of this all the way to the other side of the board. But overall, I would still highly recommend the keyboard. It is a bit on the expensive side, as $130 to $140 US for a Cherry MX board. That's a bit expensive, but you are getting those really high quality keycaps with it, which makes up a good portion of that price. If you have any questions about the keyboard that I did not cover in the review, please feel free to ask in the comment section down below, and I will try to respond to you as fast as I possibly can. I'm going to be working on several other reviews coming up shortly from the E-Element keyboard, along with other products that are being sent to me by manufacturers that they wanted me to review and look over. As always, I really appreciate you watching and listening, because this has been kind of a long one, but I really wanted to make sure I covered every facet of this board I could think of, because it's one that has gotten a lot of good and yet negative press at the same time within the keyboard community, largely due to its choice of a font. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one, everyone.